In the outskirts of Bethlehem, amidst the arid desert, a tragic event was unfolding. Rachel, the beloved wife of Jacob, was fighting for her life during the birth of their second son. The scorching sun seemed to silently witness as Rachel, in agony, struggled to bring her child into the world. Her cries of pain echoed through the tents of Jacob's caravan while he helplessly watched his wife's battle. Hope faded with each breath until finally, the weak cry of a newborn filled the air. But along with the joy of birth came the sorrow of farewell. Rachel, exhausted and weakened, departed from this world, leaving Jacob engulfed in grief. Thus, Benjamin was born, wrapped in tears and longing, forever marked by his mother's final breath. But what really happened to Rachel? Does the Bible explain the true reason for her death? This is what we will explore in today's video. As always, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Now, let's dive into the video. Rachel, one of the most captivating figures in the Bible, has her story intertwined with Jacob's in a unique and emotional way. The tale of their meeting is found in the book of Genesis and is a love story that transcends time. Jacob, fleeing the wrath of his brother Esau, left his homeland in Canaan and headed to the land of Haran, where his uncle Laban lived. His journey was long and tiring, but he carried the hope of finding refuge and a new life. Upon arriving in the region of Paddan Aram, Jacob encountered a well where shepherds gathered to water their flocks. It was there that he first saw Rachel. Rachel was a shepherdess tending her father Laban's sheep. Seeing her, Jacob was instantly captivated by her beauty and grace. He approached and, with a great show of strength, removed the stone covering the well, allowing Rachel's sheep to drink. This act of kindness and physical strength impressed Rachel, and their meeting quickly became a memorable occasion. Jacob introduced himself to Rachel as the son of Rebekah, Laban's sister, and was warmly received. Rachel ran home to tell her father about Jacob's arrival. Laban, upon hearing of his nephew's presence, rushed to meet him and welcomed him into his home. Already in love with Rachel, Jacob decided he wanted to marry her. He proposed a deal to Laban. He would work 7 years as a shepherd in exchange for Rachel's hand in marriage. Laban agreed to the arrangement, and Jacob began to work with dedication and love, counting the days until he could marry his beloved. The 7 years passed quickly for Jacob, so great was his love for Rachel. He said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my time is completed so that I may marry her." Genesis 29 verse 21. Laban then prepared a great feast and invited all the men of the place for the wedding celebration. However, Laban had other plans. On the wedding night, he deceived Jacob by substituting Rachel with his older daughter Leah. Covered by the wedding veil and the darkness of night, Jacob did not realize the deception until the next morning when he discovered he had married Leah instead of Rachel. Jacob was furious and confronted Laban. Laban explained that in their land, it was customary to marry off the older daughter first. Nevertheless, he offered a solution. Jacob could also marry Rachel provided he agreed to work for another 7 years. Although disappointed, Jacob's love for Rachel was so great that he accepted the deal and completed the wedding week with Leah before marrying Rachel. Another 7 years passed, and Jacob finally married Rachel, ending up with 2 wives. Jacob's family life with his 2 wives, Rachel and Leah, was marked by intense rivalry. Although Jacob deeply loved Rachel, it was Leah who initially bore him children. Leah gave birth to 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. With each birth, she hoped to gain Jacob's love, but he continued to prefer Rachel. Rachel, on the other hand, suffered deeply from her infertility. She envied Leah's fertility and despaired over her inability to give Jacob children. In a moment of great anguish, Rachel said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Genesis 30 verse 1. Jacob responded with frustration, reminding her that it was God who controlled fertility. To compete with her sister, Rachel resorted to an ancient custom. She gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as a concubine so she could bear children in Rachel's name. Bilhah bore 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. Leah, not wanting to be outdone, also gave her servant Zilpah to Jacob, who bore 2 more sons, Gad and Asher. Determined to find a solution, Rachel tried various methods that, in popular belief, could help her conceive. Among the practices Rachel adopted was the use of mandrakes, a plant that was considered a powerful remedy for promoting fertility in ancient times. It was believed that mandrakes possessed aphrodisiac properties and could help barren women conceive. One day, Reuben, Leah's eldest son, found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother. Rachel, seeing the plant, asked Leah to give her some of the mandrakes, hoping they might help her conceive. Leah, aware of Rachel's desperate desire, agreed to trade the mandrakes for a night with Jacob, who would normally have spent the night with Rachel. Despite the hopes pinned on the mandrakes, Rachel did not conceive immediately after using them. Her frustration continued to grow, and she persisted in her quest to find a way to fulfill her dream of becoming a mother. Time passed, and Rachel continued to pray fervently to God, asking for the blessing of motherhood. Finally, God heard her plea and intervened. Genesis 30 verse 22 states, "Then God remembered Rachel, he listened to her and enabled her to conceive." Rachel conceived and gave birth to a son, whom she named Joseph, saying, "God has taken away my disgrace." The birth of Joseph was a moment of immense joy and relief for Rachel. The name Joseph means, "May he add," reflecting Rachel's hope that God would grant her more children. Joseph's arrival not only restored Rachel's hope but also solidified her position within the family, bringing her new honor and respect. Joseph would become a central figure in the history of Israel. His extraordinary destiny, which led him to become the governor of Egypt and save his family during a time of famine, testifies to his mother's importance in the biblical narrative. Years after Joseph's birth, Rachel's hope for a second child was finally fulfilled. Rachel became pregnant again, a blessing that brought great joy and anticipation to the entire family. By this time, Jacob had left Laban's land and was returning to his homeland, Canaan, as instructed by God. As they traveled, Rachel's pregnancy progressed, and she was aware of the risks she faced, especially considering the challenges she had overcome to conceive Joseph. However, the happiness of carrying another child outweighed her fears. This second child would be the fulfillment of her desire expressed in Joseph's name, may he add, a manifestation of God's continued blessing in her life. Jacob's caravan approached Ephrath, later known as Bethlehem, when Rachel went into labor. The conditions at that time were harsh, without modern medical assistance for complicated births. Rachel felt the intensity of labor pains, which quickly revealed themselves to be severe complications. Genesis 35 verses 16 to 17 describes this harrowing moment. Then they moved on from Bethel. While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't despair, for you have another son." The midwife's words brought some comfort to Rachel amid her extreme pain. She knew her life was at risk but clung to the hope and promise of seeing her second child born. Rachel's agony was intense, reflecting the severity of the complications she faced. When she finally gave birth, Rachel was exhausted and on the brink of death. With her last strength, she named the newborn Benoni, which means "son of my sorrow" or "son of my pain." This name reflected the profound sadness and suffering Rachel experienced during childbirth. The birth of Benoni was a moment of extreme ambiguity, the joy of new life mixed with the imminent sorrow of his mother's loss. Jacob, deeply shaken by Rachel's death, made an important decision regarding his son's name. He decided to change Benoni's name to Benjamin, which means "son of the right hand" or "son of happiness." This name change was significant in several ways. First, it served as a tribute to Jacob's profound love for Rachel, transforming the negative connotation associated with Benoni's birth into something positive. Second, the name Benjamin symbolized the honor and special position he would hold in the family, being Jacob and Rachel's last son. Genesis 35 verse 18 records this poignant moment. As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Benoni. But his father named him Benjamin. Benjamin, Rachel's second son, would become the ancestor of one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribe of Benjamin. This tribe played a crucial role in the formation and development of the Israelite nation. One of the most notable descendants of Benjamin was Saul, the first king of Israel. Saul's selection as king marked a turning point in Israelite history, transitioning from a tribal confederation led by judges to a centralized monarchy. Another prominent figure descending from the tribe of Benjamin was the Apostle Paul, also known as Saul of Tarsus. In his epistles, Paul identifies himself as an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin, Romans 11 verse 1. Rachel's death was a devastating blow for Jacob and the family. Deeply saddened, Jacob buried Rachel on the way to Ephrath. He erected a pillar over her tomb as a sign of his eternal love and lasting memory of Rachel. Genesis 35 verses 19 to 20 states, "So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. Over her tomb Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day that pillar marks Rachel's tomb." The pillar over Rachel's tomb remained as a symbol of her life and Jacob's love. Even in later generations, Rachel's memory and her role in shaping the people of Israel were honored. The cause of Rachel's death remains a mystery. Some scholars and theologians suggest that her death may be linked to specific events and declarations during her life. Three main theories emerge from scriptures and traditions to explain what happened. One of the most common interpretations is that Rachel was cursed by Jacob, leading to her premature death. This theory is based on a specific incident involving Laban's household gods. When Jacob decided to flee from Laban's house, Rachel stole her father's idols and hid them. Laban, upon realizing the idols were missing, pursued Jacob and his family. When Laban confronted Jacob about the stolen idols, Jacob, unaware that Rachel was the culprit, proclaimed a curse, "But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live." Genesis 31 verse 32. Some interpret this declaration as a curse that inadvertently came true in Rachel's death. Although the Bible does not explicitly connect the curse to Rachel's death, this interpretation suggests that Jacob's words had a mystical or prophetic impact, resulting in tragic consequences for Rachel. This view is widely debated as it hinges on the belief that words spoken in ignorance can have fatal power. The incident involving Laban's idols raises questions about Rachel's morality and religiosity. By stealing the idols, Rachel was engaging in an act that went against devotion to God. Some scholars interpret Rachel's death as divine punishment for her sin of idolatry. In this context, Rachel's death during Benjamin's birth would be seen as a direct consequence from God for her moral transgression of stealing and keeping her father's pagan idols. This viewpoint is supported by the biblical narrative, which often shows God severely punishing idolatry. However, it is crucial to note that the Bible does not explicitly link the act of stealing the idols to Rachel's death. Therefore, this interpretation remains speculative and subject to theological analysis. Another intriguing theory relates to a statement Rachel made earlier in her life when she was still barren and deeply desperate for children. In Genesis 30 verse 1, Rachel said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I'll die." This statement can be seen as a hyperbolic expression of her anguish and desperate desire to become a mother. Some interpreters, however, view these words as prophetic or self-fulfilling. The theory suggests that Rachel, by uttering these words in a moment of intense emotion, somehow predetermined her fate. Rachel's death while giving birth to her second son, Benjamin, would be a tragic and literal fulfillment of her declaration. Although this view depends on the belief in the performative power of words, especially in intense emotional contexts, it also highlights human vulnerability and the mystery of destiny in biblical narratives. While none of these theories have a conclusive basis in the scriptures, they reflect the complexities of biblical interpretation and human attempts to understand tragic events through theological and moral perspectives. Rachel's story is rich in symbolism and meaning, and her tragic death while giving birth to Benjamin continues to be a point of reflection. However, Rachel's life and death are not just historical events but also carry spiritual and moral lessons that continue to resonate and inspire faith and reflection. More important than finding the cause of her death is understanding the meanings and lessons the Bible brings us. Rachel is a figure who personifies human suffering and the quest for divine blessings. Her story reflects the complex relationship between humanity and God, where personal trials and desires intersect with the divine plan. Despite her initial hardships, Rachel's story shows divine sovereignty and the response to the sincere cries of the faithful. Through her children and descendants, Rachel left a unique mark on the history of Israel and continues to inspire generations with her faith, resilience, and devotion. Now, I want to hear your opinion. Do you believe in any of these theories, or do you think all of this was part of the divine plan? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you've stayed with us until now, please consider subscribing to our channel, liking this video, and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss any of our content. Thank you for watching, take care, and God bless.